because the third green
You're unmuted.
Hello, everyone. Let us call this meeting to order at 7:42 p.m. on Tuesday, August 29th.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone had a chance to read the minutes from our meeting that was held on the 18th of July. Yes. Any comment changes? May I then have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of Tuesday, July 18th, 2023. Do I have a second?
Second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. So moving on to the acknowledgement of visitors.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd be happy to let you know who's at the meeting today. First of all, we have Mr. Scott Bullitt, our music teacher. And remotely, we're joined by Gail Billius, Britt Rusine, Cheryl Delicio, Erin Morton, Gabrielle Rademacher, Maddie Federo, Nancy Caggiano, and Ruth Kovas.
Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. May I please have a motion to suspend rules to move item number 9, other business, which includes staff survey, to item number 4 on our agenda.
I'll make a motion to move item agenda number 9, other committee business, to before item agenda 4, correspondence.
Do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor? Aye. May I also have a motion to suspend the rules to allow non-resident staff to comment on the staff survey?
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules to allow non-resident staff.
There's nothing for you here, Betty, honey. Right now, I've got to make dinner for Dad.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a technical.
So, Madam Chair, I am just changing the permissions here so that I can share the screen.
Oh, okay.
Didn't realize. Let's see here.
Madam Chair, the survey PowerPoint is in your packet.
Thanks.
Okay, so we are sharing the slideshow.
So I hope that the first day of school.
Sure.
So I hope that the first day of school went well for everyone. And I was remiss yesterday to not personally thank all of the staff at the Johnson Elementary School. I apologize. I think really the jet lag is really impacting my ability to clearly articulate my thoughts these days. So as educators, I think that you have one of the most important roles in our country. We appreciate everything that you do for our children. We also greatly appreciate the time that you took to provide valuable feedback, which we would like to share with all of you this evening. We are fortunate to have Beth Anderson on our committee. She is the founder and CEO at Phoenix Charter Academy. Given her expertise, she was gracious enough to put together this presentation that we're going to share.
Thanks, Ms. Karras, and I want to thank Ms. Dan for doing all of the behind-the-scenes work for this survey. And it has been quite a huge piece of work for us as a school committee, for the administration and staff here, and especially for all of you that gave input. Over 90% of you responded to this survey so that we could all invest together in looking at where the Johnson School is really special, was really doing a great job, and is uniquely positioned to do so, but also areas that we want to continue to challenge ourselves and each other to grow. So we appreciate all of the input there. Let me ask a technical question. They don't, the folks online don't have access to this, so
they're viewing it.
They're viewing it as presented on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then I will go slide by slide. I'm going to try not to read to folks though. So a little bit about the methodology, because we know that we have some new folks joining us this year, and folks that may not have been here in March. So this survey was designed with input from school administration, the Nahant Teachers Association, and this school committee. It was given out to teachers in March of 2023. Again, there was a 90% response rate with many, many substantive comments, stories, and helpful examples from all of you. And my own practice is that if people are willing to take the time to respond when they don't have to and give comments, it means there's a lot of investment collectively in the school system. So I appreciate you all for that. We disaggregated the responses by role and in the school and looked at those buckets to try to discern areas of strength and areas of challenge, and how that was similar and different across different levels inside of the Johnson Elementary School. We bucketed our responses as we have looked at them over the arc of months since March by 4 areas that we're going to speak to today: staffing, workforce conditions, student culture, and communication. And this committee, under the leadership of Ms. Karras, decided this first annual administration, March of 2023, and we'll continue to do it annually so that we can look at those results and really learn. Just some overall comments before we get into more of the themes of the survey. So I've spoken to the substantiveness of and helpfulness of the comments of the staff. So really appreciate the comments of the staff of the Johnson Elementary. We have collectively, and certainly the administration, dove in immediately to start working on some of the really good advice that the staff gave. More on that later, but I want to appreciate that there are communities that may have waited until this point to start working. That was not true of our administration here, or of all of you that have been involved in working groups and other ways to work together to continue to evolve and enhance the experience of students and families here at Johnson Elementary. One comment is that non-licensed teaching staff generally had a little bit more commentary and challenges, and we really took that serious. As did we the strengths mentioned by other groups. And that was an overall trend in all of the question areas. And we are going to review themes tonight, and we are not going to share individual data points or individual comments, but rather look at anywhere there was an overwhelming, meaning more than 50% of the staff swung in one direction or another as we talk about major themes, if that makes sense. All right, let's start with the first theme, which is staffing. So concerns that our Johnson Elementary School staff mentioned were first and foremost, in March of 2023, there was a lot of deep concern just about the amount of volatility over the prior year, 2 years, which definitely brought us out of the end of the pandemic, about staff coming and going. Certainly the amount of staff leaving and the amount of change that the education organization sustained felt huge, and there were a lot of comments about that. There were a fair amount of comments about inadequate curriculum materials and other materials to support curricular guidance and training inside of classrooms. There was a concern by many about staff meetings and professional development not feeling like a complete best use of educational time, and not being relevant or as beneficial as they would like it to be. Inside of that commentary about how time is best used at the Johnson Elementary, There was a concern that we heard about wanting more time for colleague collaboration to work on things together as educators and be able to co-create. Some strengths inside of the bucket of staffing included that many staff feel like their expectations for the work are clearly defined, and that there is a lot of trust for staff to feel like they can make decisions out of the way that they use and implement curriculum. So there was some agency celebration inside of the survey comments. I'm going to move to working conditions, which is the second out of 4. Top concerns around working conditions. First and foremost, overwhelmingly, there's a concern about morale. Some folks relate morale to the staff retention rates. Other folks link morale to the level of collaboration and support between primarily teaching staff and administration. There was a concern about consistent support and well thought out, planned and communicated support for our paraprofessionals and for our teachers who sort of co-authored their classroom journey with paraprofessionals here at Johnson. And then concerns were brought up about wanting to make sure that budget allocation for classroom educational materials and supplies was really thought out and offered primarily to classroom educators. On the other side, some strengths that were mentioned. There was a overwhelming feeling, and not just related to working conditions, but throughout the survey, that staff care about the Johnson Elementary. Staff feel a sense of camaraderie with each other, and they really care about both Nahant and this school, and we deeply appreciate that. Staff felt that administration values and prioritizes their physical safety, the safety of this building, and that of the students. And that is no small thing given the times that we are in. Staff also stated that they feel supported by parents and families. Student culture, which will be the third out of 4 areas. Student culture concerns. The top 2 areas of student culture concerns were regarding, generally speaking, and regarding the clarity of discipline policies that are here at the Johnson Elementary between staff, students, parents, and I should have said, and also administration. So all key constituencies, there was a feeling that there was a lack of clarity and alignment between those groups. There was a concern about the consistent enforcement of breaks in student culture. And what we mean by that is there's a thinking of what healthy student culture should look like when inevitably a student or group of students breaks that culture or does something that is counter to what that culture should be to be able to have a healthy environment. There was a concern about consistent enforcement policy of what should happen in those circumstances. So consequences for student behavior, which would be a negative category. There were a lot of comments about oversight of students at recess time, and also support from administration of teachers and staff who are enforcing the student code of conduct and making sure that they felt supported by administration. So those were the concerns. Some strengths that were mentioned by folks were the small class sizes. So compared to some of our the districts surrounding Nahant, certainly our small class sizes are a big plus. And also that student safety is a priority for the administration of the school, that students are safe in school and that there's a desire for students to be safe with each other in school. The last bucket that we looked at were comments and data around communication. Some of the concerns included a lack of consistent communication strategy around student needs. So those would be health-related safety, behavior, and special circumstances. This was true, folks talked about, especially for temporary or support staff. So needing more, desire for more lines of communication for the temporary staff. And that was less true for the folks that are regular staff, permanent staff here. Quality and timeliness of communication about anything that might happen, from a student behavioral issue to a curricular change or some other thing, communication between administrators and staff. And then the last was collaboration between administrators and staff on policy and initiatives that the school might be undertaking. Some strengths that were mentioned by all of you about communication were that staff feel they received constructive feedback from both administration and their peers. So that was very, very healthy, so they feel like they can grow. Staff feel that expectations are clearly laid out for them in their job. And staff feel that student needs are regularly communicated to regular staff, but that was different for temporary staff. So before we get to the work to date, I will say that we spent an awful lot of time both looking at individual data buckets, and then also in the work of the school committee over the last few months, and really applied the survey learning to what we were doing here. Even in some of the bigger and larger decisions around our 5th and 6th grade that we all as a community grappled through over the last few months. And that was really, truly helpful. Now I want to get to the part that we mentioned before about the work to date. Again, Mr. Andrews and Mr. Parentozzi and others jumped right in when they received survey results and started to work on making all of these 4 areas feel better for all of the staff and be stronger for our students and families. Here were some that are listed on the next slide. These are not comprehensive. So teaching working groups were started to collaborate around curriculum or deepen where they had already started to talk about curricular areas. Teachers were also invited to be able to feedback and more primarily to talk about professional development and other kinds of trainings that happened. There is a staff evaluation after every formal PD, so that the administration can look at what that data says so that they can improve for next time or keep doing something that is really good. I will also mention that Mr. Andrews brings that data back here to the school committee, and we talk about it collectively as a group so that we can really support how things are going around training and professional development. There's been a conversation about purchasing educational materials and supplies that have been requested by staff. And I know that Mr. Andrews and Mr. Parentozzi continue to work on that, make something equitable and fair and a lift for primarily our classroom teachers. There are faster communication loops both between students and or parents and administration, and letting teachers know what is happening as when students have had those kind of culture breaks. There's increased student enrichment on anti-bullying and how students here can learn how to be upstanders or support each other in good and healthy ways and stand up to bullying behavior. And there's a commitment to repeat the survey annually and compare this data over time, which is a real investment. It should always happen in school districts, but I think those of you who have worked in other districts know that it doesn't. And while we want to work hard and take this deeply seriously, particularly the challenges that this staff took the time and vulnerability and brave space to be able to share, we also want to honor that this administration and all of you are committed to making the school better and really naming where problems exist and try to improve them. There are a lot of places that would shy away from that and be defensive and dismissive. And so I appreciate the work of the administration here to support this process. Okay, and I just, along with Ms. Karras and Ms. Dan and the other school committee members, you know, who have really dove into this work, and all of us have been talking about this for a long time. Good surveys can't happen without all of you being willing to dive in and take the chance to give your input. And we want to make good on that covenant by continuing to work with staff and administration to make this place the best place it can be. So I appreciate it. Thank you. Anybody want to add anything that I missed or?
I think you did a really excellent job covering all of the things that we have been considering and the administration has been working hard to do. And again, just, you know, to reiterate the staff taking the time and providing the valuable information. Truly appreciate that.
And we hear you. So with that, I'd like to open it up to community correspondence. If you would like to make any comments, if you could state your name and your address.
Ms. Garris, maybe before folks begin, I just want to review just quickly public comment, if that's okay. Great. So public comment session can feel, for me, new to this, when I started, it can feel a little awkward in that we can have a dialogue. And the reason, so you can say and offer any public comment you want, but if you ask questions, we can't answer them. And the reason for that is actually so that we don't use one dialogue to take away from other people that have their right to speak right now about this particular issue. So I just wanted to reiterate that if we can feel awkward, you are welcome to ask or say whatever you like on the subject of the JES survey, but we can't respond. If there are other avenues where you could ask for something that's more like a public forum if you needed that, but that's not what this is. So I just wanted to make sure that we're clear about that from the get, as my students would say, and the kids, and go from there.
Yeah.
You have the chat open. Okay, yes. Great. Okay, sure.
Thanks. Don't be shy. Anybody? Who's in the chat? Give another moment. If no one would like to say anything, then we can move on. Well, thank you, everybody. I don't think that's not staff. This would also be time for general community correspondence. Yeah. Which I didn't receive any prior to this meeting. I have not had any.
I did informally. I did. So it wasn't a formal, but I did have 2 conversations with I was engaged by 2 members of our parent community about just the decision about sending the 6th grade forward. And they were both cautions that while both parents completely understood why we decided that this was best and do decide that this is best for this particular 6th grade going to Swampscott. There were some cautions just about making sure that we spend some time this year thoughtfully considering what this means for the future in terms of implications, and that both parents shared that there has been a conversation in varying areas of Nahant, and of course there is just about what this means for the future. So I wanted to share that and also say that I do, like all of you, think that it's important that we figure out when and how we're going to have that conversation. Just wanted to say that publicly to the crowd.
I also had some community input regarding the slush forest playgrounds day that we had last week before school started. I think there was some concern over like why all of the teachers weren't required to be here. I think some families were looking forward to meeting the kids having their teacher there, and it seemed for this person it seemed surprising that it wasn't like required that the teacher had to be here. So that was the input I got. Meaning like this person specifically said in other school districts, if something like that occurs and next teacher's expected to be there, if they're expected to be there, it shouldn't be, but some people are. It's contractual, I believe. Right. Yeah. So I just took the information and
the one thing I will say is I guess informally I've been asked when the decision will be made about the current 5th grade class and what will happen next year, and I keep encouraging families to attend the meeting. Yeah. And then it's going to be really clearly posted on the days that we're discussing that at the meeting, so we can just continue to reiterate for people to come to the meeting.
Yes. I did that as well. Yeah. And I wanted when I say informal, I don't mean I'm having a beer on the beach with somebody and they happen to be talking about this. Does it come up then? Yes, but that feels more very, very informal. I'm saying 2 people said, as a parent, I am talking to you as a school committee member on the side of the road before we go in and spend too much money at Turnstone Market. And I'm gonna tell you that this is what I feel. And so that feels germane to bring up. Yes.
Okay, we can move on to the examination and authorization for the public reports.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have a substantial number of bills this evening. And they are labeled item 5 in your packet, and I would like to respectfully suggest at the end of my explanations that a member of the committee make a recommendation to approve the expenditure of $87,217.29. So starting with the first one is annually we get all carpets and all classroom area rugs cleaned. That's the first item. The second item is for special education summer services. The next item is custodial material. And then we have National Grid. The first one is gas. The second one is for $8 for outside electric. We have a separate bill for one of our lights on our parking lots. And if you remember, that bill before we converted used to be in the 30s. Now it's $8 because it's LED. And then the electric for the entire building. The next few quill are supplies. And the last one is paper. McGraw-Hill is obviously books. Quadient Finance is a little kind of weird. That's our postage meter. So we have a maintenance fee for our postage meter. And then occasionally you'll see a much bigger number where we actually prepay postage. We have an exterminator. AT&T is obviously phones. NECS is the copies. We get a certain number of copies in our contract, and when we exceed that number, we pay a certain small amount per 100 copies. RP O'Connell is the generator repair to keep our generators serviced, which is a requirement, obviously, that we have. Maximum Healthcare Staffing Services is a one-timer. We wanted a nurse here for our summer programs, and we could not get a nurse. We had to go through a placement agency, and that's called Maximum. So that's what those are. We did have a nurse here 2 days a week hired by us that was on the payroll, and then the other 2 days I couldn't get anyone, so we went through a service, and that's what this is. East of Seals, we've talked about that in the past. That's special education services. The elevator is an inspection fee. Tony Parentazzi got reimbursed $648.93, the reimbursement for the annual superintendent's conference. That's room and board. Actually, it's room, not board. I apologize. Verizon is phones, obviously. There's 3 of those. Instant Alarm, that's our monthly bill for our new alarm system. $980 is for our air solutions. We bought all the filters we're going to need for all of our units up front. Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents, $250 is for the conference, which is very low because I'm retired. I pay the retiree amount, and the $323 is our membership fee. Amazon is all educational supplies. Mystery Science are educational materials and kits. Canon is our copier. Home Depot is the custodial supplies. Verizon speaks for itself. I believe that's 2 months for the principal's cell phone, I believe. Northeastern Educational Consortium, $10,000 is our annual fee. The others are summer tuitions for students who have summer programs on their IEPs. Sopris is school brains. That's the package we use for all of our data. And the annual fee for the Massachusetts Association of School Committees is the next item. And Murphy Toomey Lehane, I missed one. Murphy Hesse Toomey Lehane is our attorney, and we had a negotiations for a special education placement this summer. Healy Bus Company is the first month for our contract, and I am very happy to mention that that monthly bill will not change until 2026.
Wow.
So when I negotiated that contract with Healy, it's a 3-year contract. It went up approximately 5% per year in the first 3 years. And then we have a rider for the next 2 years. There's no change. So this is the 3rd year of the contract. Then for the next 2 years, so that'll go till June of 24. And then next year and the year after, it'll be the same amount. So we're really pleased about that. And then the last one, Linda Marquis, is the cost of our summer speech and language pathologist.
There are a couple of things that I want.
Yes, there were. And I added them.
Okay.
I will mention them. I have them put aside, ready to go. There was a school lunch program amount for $124.08. There were teaching supplies for $710 for school specialty, $710.64, and there were special education supplies for $349.80 for Pro Ed Inc. Those are actually added into the number that I read before. Okay. So respectfully, I would ask a member of the school committee to make a motion to approve $87,217.29.
Don't go ahead, Beth.
I'll make a motion to approve the bill this meeting for $86,032.77. Do I have to say?
Technically, that's not the right number. It's $87,217.29.
I'd like to amend that to $87,270.29.
I second that.
All in favor? Stop play.
Thank you. So moving on to this. Oh, yes, we do. Sorry, no, the brain is not functioning, I swear. Okay. All in favor? Oh, yeah.
I thought we already did that.
That's for us up.
Thank you very much.
So moving on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. The first item, Madam Chair, with your permission, I would like to defer to the principal for the principal's report. And the first item that I have put in the packet is the Johnson School Professional Development Day agenda from August 28th. And I'd like to thank the 3 members of the committee who joined us. And it was a very positive day, I felt. For more detail, I would turn to Mr. Andrews.
Thank you, Superintendent Parentozzi and Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to share my report. This year, I decided to reformat my reports a bit and change them into the buckets that I see that I am meeting the needs of for the school. I do a principal's report, but I'm also leading the technology drive in the school, curriculum and instruction, and professional development, of course, with staff input. And so those are the new headings that you'll see on my reports this year. I hope that's satisfactory to you. And let me open up with students, families, and community. And this is the typical principal report section. I'll save my top 2 pieces for later in our agenda. But I want to let you know that we have our open house, September 6th, 2023. And that will be at 6 p.m. I will be sending an email reminder to families about that. It's been in the newsletter, and a couple of days, I think the day of, I'll send a text message reminder. I found that from our slush event, we usually have around 40, 45 students come. and we had closer to 70.
Wow.
Yeah, it was double what we normally get. I usually give away a full cooler of slush, and we had that gone in about 10 minutes. So we ran to Seaside Variety, and they helped us out over there, and we scooped some slush.
Nice.
And it was wonderful. It was a really positive event. I thank you for being able to make it, the members that were able to attend, and thank you for the feedback on it, Ms. Lloyd. Also in the area of community, our art teacher, Laura Cheney, is doing some wonderful collaboration with the Historic Society. As you may know, they're having an exhibit about Norman La Liberté, who was an artist from Nahant. It's going to be it's a really big exhibit for the society, and our students are all going to be participating in that through their art class. We also have an opportunity to create some field trips for that. So I thank Ms. Cheney for pushing hard for that, working on it over the summer, attending meetings with the society, and it's a great collaboration. It seems like every year we have an opportunity to work with a certain artist or art form, and this is one of those opportunities. In the area of technology, we're moving forward with School Brains and the parent portal. We've uploaded the report cards to the portal, so parents will be able to see that. Our next step was planned to send parents their email credentials. I have a bit of a concern with doing that now because we're also looking at a new platform for getting information out. And the new platform will allow us to email you your student report card, so you don't have to go to a portal. And it also will do it could also do a lot of other things if we adopt that. Again, we're going to have a collaborative approach with staff. We're going to have an opportunity to weigh in on some different options. Parent Square is what Swampscott's using. You might be familiar with that. I had a webinar with Parent Square sales representative. Looked very interesting. It wraps up Sign Up Genius. It lets us do digital signings for permission slips. It lets me call a home from my cell phone by just typing in the student's name and then logging that phone call. So it has a lot of capabilities. It's not a free option, but it's something that we should consider. We're also considering things like Class Dojo, Remind, Google Voice, and other things that staff are bringing to us. Some are free, like Class Dojo. Others have a cost associated, but that cost might be, that product would be able to eliminate some other products that we currently pay for. And so, in the area of communication, this will facilitate, I think, communication between myself and staff, parents, and teachers. Teachers will get their own, would get their own Parent Square phone number if we use that as part of the system and be able to call from their cell phone and have it not share their private number. But the parent could call back on that real number during school hours. And the parent, this teacher can even put in their 40-minute prep period and say, this is my office hours if you need to call me, and get to their cell phone, which is really nice. So there's some real nice possibilities there. And I've been able to meet with the superintendent to discuss some of the possibilities. And as I said, next week I'll be meeting with staff who are interested in helping us select something that will really, the main impetus was to how can we easily get a text to a parent as a reminder. I can do it currently through School Brains. Teachers can't do it easily. And for me, it's about a 6-step process. And so we want to have it be like a regular text. As easy as that. Okay. Please.
Yeah, I have to say, Parent Square, I know it's new and being rolled out by Swampscott, but I love it. It's wonderful. I love the calendar function where you can just be like, okay, there's something when are they not in session?
That's great.
It's great. It's wonderful.
Great. It all integrates with our, it would all integrate with the School Brains. So it pulls in with Google. So it would pull all our calendar information from Google and put it into Parent Square. So it pulls, it can pull from a lot of sources, and then it can also replace a lot of things like Sign Up Genius and School Brains and other things.
And if, Swampscott has success there and continues to use it, we transition for people to use one.
It's about a 3 to 5 week onboarding. And so it's possible if we decided to go forward with it that it could be done in a relatively short amount of time. So that's technology. In the area of curriculum instruction, I'd like to let you know that the state is now requiring elementary schools to have reading assessments for all students. We've been doing this for years, and lots of schools have. Now the state is identifying specific reading assessments that must be done, or that would qualify under their regimen. And luckily, one of them is iReady, which we already do. And they're requiring us to do it twice a year. Currently, we do it 3 times a year. And after, the only change would be that if a student is found to be below reading level, we would offer the parent an opportunity to conference and also offer remediation. So the real focus is on reading with that, and that'll start this year. Well, that'll continue this year, with the only adjustment being that we would actively say, your students below grade level in reading, would you like a meeting? That's really the major change. And I'm thinking about pairing it with our parent-teacher conferences. We're continuing to pilot handwriting without tears, again, with staff input. We did get some staff input. This was prior to the survey, actually, last year. I had a group meeting about it, and we'd like to continue piloting it this year. This is more about letter formation rather than how to read. And so we're continuing to look at that and continuing to look at the cursive program. And so we're continuing to pilot it. You haven't approved it, so that's why it's in the pilot phase. But we're going to have a close look at it, and hopefully, if we think that it's a valuable product, bring it forward to you. We've been using it as an intervention since before I got here in occupational therapy. It was developed by occupational therapists. Spoke a little bit about our professional development. One change that we made this year was that rather than having a long morning session that was solid, we broke it up. And so the superintendent offered some professional development for teachers on teaching techniques, de-escalation, while I worked with paraprofessionals and the special ed director and the paraprofessionals to talk about their role in the classroom, give them access to IEPs, and talk about how they can support students. And so I think it's important to understand that they're at the front line with a lot of students that we work with, and that their training is important. And so we let them know what days they're going to be attending training. They come on all the full days that we have for professional development, and we also solicited feedback on what would be most helpful for them and what they're interested in learning about. I also, instead of doing a direct instruction type of presentation, I changed my format into a Google quiz. And so if someone has seen my 51A presentation 6 times, they can go and take a quiz about it and don't have to listen to all my slides again because they know the answers. And so it allows teachers that are more experienced to go through it, and others to take their time, review the slides, and then take the quiz, and I can see how folks did. And Mr. Parentozzi took it at, I think, 6:15 in the morning of professional development day, and found the error that I had made in my quiz and shared it with me. And so that was helpful, but it just shows you his work ethic as a retired educator. And then I left on there, my apologies, the new class schedule, but that wasn't supposed to be under professional development. That should have been elsewhere. But we are having multi-grade classes. PE, music, and library. Students in 4th and 5th are getting together for those classes. And so, I think that was one of the things that you were interested in seeing. And it's a way for us to offer that to the 5th grade class, which, as you know, is small. And I think it's working well so far. I haven't heard problems about it, but I guess today was just the first day. I've been doing acceleration programs in camps all summer, so it feels like I haven't. So, but today went great. we hope it continues. That's right. Mr. Bullock is going to be using the cafeteria and the stage for his music instruction. We've changed the schedule. He's interested in setting up the risers on the cafeteria floor for the year. We have space for that. He's also interested in setting up all the different ORF instruments and xylophones on this cafeteria floor so that it's easy to access, so that it's, they're more usable. And you see his enthusiasm.
Yes.
It's going to continue. And Mr. Parentozzi and I just want to support his initiatives.
Yes.
And students, I think, are going to have a great year in music. And then again, we're creating opportunities for teacher input. I'm really trying to use shared documents and comment features in Google to collect input. So whenever I send a schedule out, I let them know if it's a draft, highlight a change you want to see and put a comment in there. If you use the @ symbol, it's going to come to my inbox. They can catch me in the hallway, but a lot of times they're not in the hallway, they're usually teaching. So if they don't have time to give me feedback, they can do it that way. And I'm using that to customize the schedule to their needs. And then down below, we have some upcoming events. First day of school was today. How good, grades 1 to 6, small wish. Maybe another year. And preschool orientation went well. We have a healthy preschool enrollment of, let's see, the most we have in each class on one day is 28, but I believe we have around 36 students enrolled in preschool. And we had a great turnout for the orientation for those students today. And we're doing our kindergarten screening. Next year, we're already talking about doing kindergarten screening at the end of preschool rather than the first few days of school. You all brought that idea up, and I think it's feasible if we change the staff that help with it. And I think it would actually help our school year start off nice for our special ed staff. And our first day of kindergarten is on Thursday. And then we have a 4-day weekend.
Yes.
So much earned.
I have a question. How many students are enrolled for grade 5?
How many students are enrolled in grade 5? The answer is 7.
Oh.
The answer was 6 yesterday.
Okay. Changed today.
What's the capacity for preschools? Just in case anybody asks.
Oh, it's
Like for you said the most.
Let me explain.
What's been coming the day?
Kevin gave you the total.
Yeah.
The most students we have on any one day is 28, but we have two classes.
Yeah.
So it's 14 in the class.
Yeah.
And the total is 36 students because we have
Some
options.
days and some others.
That's right.
Right.
We have 5-day option, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3-day option, or Tuesday, Thursday, 2-day option.
But what's the maximum capacity for?
I think about 22 per class.
Oh, so we're far from it.
So
Oh, yeah, we have.
We have a lot of capacity. Absolutely.
We actually have, Madam Chair, if I may, I believe I spoke to 2 parents. We have, and I think we have 3 more students coming.
Yeah.
They will come when they turn 3 years old.
Yeah, and they're already registered. They have a slot. They, put down their deposit. They know the day they're going to start. Some of them came to the orientation today.
Yeah.
Which is good. Yeah, and then I have another one that's going to start in January, and they emailed me, and I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it by tour on a different day. We don't have an open house at that time, so we accept throughout the year, and I do think we have capacity for the number of students that live in Nahant.
Yeah, one thing I think I probably should mention to the school committee, so in case someone mentions it to you, you're not surprised. If you're earlier at a meeting, you approved the attendance for a split family and a military, and there was a military connection. That family will have an early childhood preschool student during the school year. So because you've already approved it, I won't bring it to you again. Obviously, if you're allowing a child to go to school, you're going to allow a preschool, which is a paid program.
Right.
Right.
That's what we did.
So
I think we voted on the preschool.
That's what we voted on.
Okay.
You voted on the preschool.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, we did.
That's the preschool?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that student's not here yet.
I don't believe they started yet.
No. I apologize. I got confused. I met the parent, and she needed some help, and I was under the impression she had another child here, but obviously that's not.
And we also have a town employee who has a child here.
That's right. And that was also approved.
So the approval, we approved the preschooler if that family decided, but that preschooler has not started yet.
I don't believe that they are.
That's correct.
Yet. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
They might be enrolled, but they haven't, I don't believe they started.
Kevin, how many girls are in fifth grade? One. Still one.
Yeah.
That is seven.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So moving on to the facilities update.
Hey, I sent an email to members of the school committee and to all of the staff regarding some very good news. Because of the work of Representative Peter Capano and Senator Brendan Brighton, we have a $50,000 grant to improve school security and safety. Through the survey, members of the staff have already recognized that that's very important to us, and it will continue to be important. I have had 2 recommendations already from staff members, because I sent staff members a separate email. I believe I sent you all a copy. It was a little bit different than the one I sent you. And 2 staff members have already made recommendations for how that money could be spent. I'm not even going to tell you what the recommendations are, because my interface with the police department is crucial in this regard, and their opinion of how the money should be spent. They're the experts on safety, not me. But I want to thank the 2 staff members who have already made recommendations, and that's just one example of how we're moving forward in the future. Other than that, our facilities are in great shape. Actually, I had a conversation with James, who has been here for 20 years, and he was mentioning to me how the building has been, over time, improved in many, many ways. So, for example, one good example is we're in this room now. This is our library. There's a split air conditioner heater behind us that wasn't here a few years ago. There's a beautiful mural behind us that wasn't here. We can see each other because of LED lights that weren't here. And just as an example. And there continues to be the need for maintenance, obviously, and we will continue to work on it, but the building is in really good shape. A staff update, Madam Chair, if I can go to 6C with your permission. We have in your packet, you will see a resume for Amanda Bartlett. Ms. Bartlett is an occupational therapist. And since I've been here, we have had CODAs, certified occupational therapist assistants, who needed supervision from an occupational therapist. We are extremely pleased that we now have a fully licensed and certified by the state and by the DESE occupational therapist on staff. And as you can see by the resume, she has experience in the Boston Public Schools, the Cambridge Public Schools, the Salem Public Schools, and in private therapy also. So we're thrilled that Amanda has joined us. The second resume is Maureen Locke. Maureen Locke is a paraprofessional or an ESP who joined us. Career change. She was a director of operations for a private company, and she decided that she would rather be in schools. And today was her first day, and on the way out, I asked her how it was, and said she loved it. So that's great. Madam Chair, there's 2 things that are not on my list of things that I would like to mention. Number 1 is I'd like to go back to the Professional Development Day, and what we did this day in response to the survey, really, and in input from staff members, is we gave the staff a lot more time to do their own personal work. So we were done at around 11:45 with all the required stuff, and I do want to explain that we are required to present certain things by law or by DESE guideline, and we have to do it. And we did it as quickly as we could and as painlessly as we could. And then we allowed the staff, we scheduled the staff for the entire afternoon to either go onto websites that they need to take training, and we need to certify that training is taken, for example, 51A, ethics training, or to prepare their classroom for today, the first day of school. So I hope the staff found that particular day to be worthwhile for them in preparation for the school year. And the second thing I want to mention is I have my cell phone loaded up with a staff survey to send to all staff. But I didn't want to push the button without your all permission. It's your survey.
Please, share.
Okay.
Which version?
What?
The whole one, the presentation for tonight?
The presentation for tonight.
Oh, yes.
I apologize if I misled you.
Yes.
It's what
Yeah,
was presented
Yes,
this
that would be
evening.
great. Thank you.
It is gone.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
But again, I didn't want to do that. It was your presentation, so I wanted to make sure you knew I was thinking about doing it and that I wanted to do it. And that's it for me.
Excellent. So moving on to old business.
And is that the summer programs?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Sorry.
This is the 2023-2024 grades 5-6 plans update. I can speak to, we do have a signed memorandum by both parties. In effect, great work.
Yeah.
Good job.
And a copy of that is in your packet, Madam Chair.
So that is done for this school year.
And as a reminder, and Madam Chair, if I may, regarding that document, item number 3 in that document outlines how we will pay. And I communicated with the town of Nahant treasurer and the financial director today and sent them a copy of it and explained to them that the amount of money that we're going to be paying Swampscott from now until the end of the 5-year contract will be changing. It will change once after October 1st, when the number is solidified and we know how much we're going to pay for each student who's registered in the 6th grade at that time. And then that number will be spread out over the remaining payments of the 5-year contract. And that, if you remember, was a negotiated item to make it less painful in terms of finance.
Right.
Okay.
So do we have how many students registered for grade 6 over in Swampscott?
I do not at this time.
I know we
There was, I was told orally that one new student had registered, but that has not been confirmed. So that would make it 6.
Yeah.
And so the amount wouldn't change because the number for pupil changed. It's the total number. It's based on the total number enrolled. That'll be solidified on October 1st.
Yes. The per student number is locked in by the agreement.
Yes.
And both ways.
Yes.
But on October 1st, we lock it in.
The number.
The gross number. But then it's spread out over the remaining payment. We pay 3 times a year for the 7th through 12th, and this number will be added to those payments.
So we can move on to the calendar for the one
more
more question.
So, no, not a question, but so we'll be discussing throughout the fall and planning so that we can make a decision by mid-year about next year.
Yes, we have to have
Because
decision
it's
for
written-
Swampscott by January.
Yes, because it's written into the current agreement that we could have the opportunity to
Extend the contract
Extend the
for 1
contract.
year at the same cost per pupil, but we need to.
January. So that'll be an agenda.
And Madam Chair, if I may interject, it would be helpful for planning purposes for us to know if this is the graduating year for these students.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or if it's, or if they'll have, another year with us and this is not their cumulative experience.
Right.
So.
Oh, yeah, we'll be soliciting input from everybody, which won't be.
No, what I'm saying is this would be helpful to
Yes,
know if
totally.
if
Right.
we're planning, experiences for them.
And you think by January, for the second half of the year, it's reasonable.
I think that's about it. That'd be a good time. And January would be enough time to be able to put that together. But if we, went more later, then it would be hard to book things and. Well, I'm thinking more about buses and tickets and.
Yeah. And can I just speak to that quickly? I was obviously very involved with this last class graduating, the sixth graders that are the incoming seventh graders with all of the event planning and all of the fun stuff that we had going on. So my hope is to put together a binder for the families, the classroom parents, whoever can help manage it so that it's not managed by you, of course. But so that it's helpful information to pass along, because I think that that's one thing that would have been nice for us to have. So I do plan on doing that.
I'd be happy to collaborate with you.
Okay, yeah, so I just wanted to let you know that if that is the plan, I think it would be helpful to have everything in one spot so that everybody does not do the work again. Yeah, I know you don't. I mean, it was great, and it wasn't just me. I'm just saying, I think I said that I was going to try and do it, and I'm saying it out loud so that I do it. So that I think that would be helpful for the class. Let's move on to the calendar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a very minor item, but obviously our calendar, when it was approved, said sixth grade.
Right.
So this calendar simply changes the 6 to a 5.
Okay. I was wondering what the change was.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, just one through 5 at the top.
Well, I know.
No, it's important, but it's important.
Yeah.
But it's published out there.
That's right. So that's the only change. Everything else is the same. And I did that without your approval, and frankly, I don't think you need to approve it because it's just a detail. Yeah.
Well, the other thing was
But I also didn't want. I wanted to bring it to your attention.
Yeah.
Also.
Thank you, and I like having the printed one.
Yeah.
I realized that I should have asked this in other committee business, and I don't, if it's not okay to ask this now, that's fine. I would just ask that it be added to the agenda for next time. But while the school year is starting now, last year we had talked about providing families with special education families with parent advisory council information, and so I just wanted to bring that up again to make sure that was communicated to families. And then also the Nahant bus policy, and making sure that families who are using that service receive that.
They did.
It was received at the end of the school year.
Oh, the end of the school year.
Yeah, the end of
Yeah, the bus policy was
I
provided,
received it.
and our director of special education has been interfacing with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and the special education department at Swampscott. And I apologize, I don't know where that sits this moment,
Okay.
but I will find out this evening and I will email it to you.
About the bus policy?
No, about the special
I'm sorry.
education
Okay.
advisory council. I'm of the opinion from memory that the department recommended that our parents attend the Swampscott Council.
Yes,
And I don't know when that is, but I'll find out.
okay, thank you.
Might not be a bad idea to redistribute the bus policy.
It's also provided by Swampscott.
It's on their website.
It's on their website.
I
And it's actually
received it
been on a couple of the emails.
Yeah, I saw the
on the email. I also received it like on paper
we just
when
haven't
Connor
been
had the
detailed.
slush
Email
day. They had some information that showed you how to access things, but everything was on the website.
Okay.
That's good to know. I
Yeah.
wasn't at this session.
And it's on our website.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Also.
Yes.
And when the schedule went out to the parents, which I finalized about 2 weeks ago, and then resent it out because we got a call from a parent. Actually, I spoke with a parent last week of a student who's going to be taking the bus to the middle school. And they said, and the parent told me that they had contacted the principal, who told them that they were still waiting for the determination of the late buses. I went back on my emails and I sent that to Swampscott on July 25th.
Yeah.
So what I did was I resent it to everyone in Swampscott. And with that document, Sherry attached the policy. Okay. So unbeknownst to me, last year, if you remember, the middle school and the high school switched in Swampscott. They switched schedules.
Yeah.
But the bus company didn't switch to late buses.
Yes, so the kids weren't able to attend after SWAT.
They weren't able to get transportation for after. Now, what we decided after a lengthy dial back and forth with Swampscott, the middle school late bus is going to be 3:30, and the high school at 4 o'clock approximately, every day.
Okay.
Okay, you should have got that.
I think I only looked at the morning. I don't think I looked at the
The
afternoon.
afternoon is on.
Okay, I'm sure it is. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
So moving on to new business.
Okay. Madam Chair, the programs, the summer program should have been under old business, but somehow it snuck down to under new business. But I know Mr. Answers is ready to give you an update on our very successful summer programs this year.
I'm happy to. Madam Chair, we had 2 programs, as you probably know. One was an enrichment camp, 4 weeks, 4 days a week. And I was quite involved with that in planning and the execution. And I really enjoyed putting the lessons together. We opened with a science question and then encouraged the students to write and do math work around that question. And I found it was successful. I was there to support the teachers, to handle any behavior issues, which there were 0. And I think that kind of speaks to the level of engagement and the work of the teachers. We had 3 classes go, and that was for students who completed grades K through 6. Then we had the Acceleration Academy, which was 5 days, 8:30 to 12:30. And again, we had 3 groupings. This was quite different because we took student data from iReady and put groups together to really accelerate them. The goal from the state was to have us do a month of school in a week. The students, we also wanted the students to be enjoying it, engaged, and wanting to keep coming. And so the attrition rate was not significant. We had a couple students decide that it wasn't for them, which was fine with us. The families decided that as well. And we had multi-grade classes because of our size. And because of the requirement that we target the students where they were at, we really had to go multi-grade. And so we had a class that was grades 1, 2, 3. We had a class that was pre-KK. We had a class that was 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we focused in either ELA or math. We were really charged to focus in one area, but the teachers found a way to work in both subjects to some degree in the math. When you really spread out the grades, to target math was going to be more advantageous at that upper grade level. And again, I think we had great participation from the students. I really do think that they enjoyed showing up every day. From what I saw, the lines outside, they were happy to be in the building and be with their teachers. And so I think it was a success. We had 40 students sign up for the Acceleration Academy. And it was and it's students that finished pre-K. So it was a lot of students, it was their first day in school for them being not in preschool.
Yeah.
So that was different. And we had some, we had some students that got a little bit emotional about it, but they got through it. And I was there to help them transition into the classroom. And we also had some kindergartners that were having a hard time getting back. But I think that's really going to help us on our first day of kindergarten, and it helped us, I think, on our first day of first grade. I'm not sure if you had students outside of the building that were having a hard time crossing the threshold, literally. No? Good.
First grade.
Good. Because some of those students that had a hard time were in the Acceleration Academy, and that helped.
That's great.
Madam Chair, if I may, I'd like to draw a line between the staff members who were working with multi-grade levels in the Acceleration Academy and our professional development going forward into differentiation in order to address the long-term question of what happens in the future if we need to combine two grades. And what we will rely on Mr. Andrews and the staff members who have already done work in ELA and math at a multi-grade level for a week, and see how they can work with their colleagues and have the professional development necessary for differentiation. It's good for multiple reasons. Number one, multi-grade level, because that's the target that you gave us to develop something for the future. So in case this happens again, it's a much easier thing to do. Number two, we need to differentiate between for students, because regardless of the tightness of a grade, pick a number, third grade, there is a span of abilities, skills, and learning timeline in that grade. So it's our responsibility, really, as educators, to differentiate all the time.
Yeah.
And all too often, I think some of us rely on groups rather than individualize. We go, low, medium, high, or something like that. And so we're going to be learning. All of us are going to be learning from our staff that worked in the Acceleration Academy, because they worked hard at differentiating for those activities.
That's great.
We have attempted to get a consultant, unsuccessful so far, but we will continue to do it.
Did you receive any feedback from teachers in regards to, was it difficult to implement?
I found that teachers said, well, it's challenging.
Yeah.
It is challenging. And the way we handled it was we would actually have half the students go to PE with another half from another class, and Ms. Martineau did math and movement, which was great. And so they'd be sprinting to the answer of 2 + 5, and then and it was great. She jumped right into it, because we really were supposed to teach whatever the subject was for the whole 4 hours. We weren't supposed to have PE, outside of the inside of that 4 hours. And so we made it relevant.
Yeah.
And in that way, the classes were repeatedly, either Ms. Martineau would go in to a class and break the class in two, or she would take half, or they would go into centers. It's not as simple as having everybody that's the same.
Right.
But it is, it's possible. And I think that they enjoy working together. The kids really did enjoy, the experience. More I could say.
Yeah. So moving on to policies.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, the first thing I would like to do is show the
show and tell.
Show the school committee your future. This summer, I worked on. Present, the count is 52 policies that need revision. On the agenda this evening are 2 for specific reasons, which I'll explain. But this is all of the policies every one of them is organized the same way. There are 7 copies of the current policy. Then behind that is the new draft policy. Some of them are finished and don't need any work because I got them directly from the attorneys at MASC, and they're kind of they're about finance, and they're about the adjustment is new laws that were passed, that kind of thing, new references. So that won't take a lot of time. This policy, for example, needs blanks filled in, which are simple, you know, not. So it's ready to go.
We're gonna plug away at them basically throughout the year.
I defer to the chair.
We can do this in many ways. We can tackle a few at a time. We can not all do them. Maybe 1 or 2 of us go directly to Tony and come in one day and just plow through them all. No.
I think I'll have a couple at a time.
Yeah.
I don't take that personally.
Yeah, I'm a policy person, so like if you're doing multiple policies in one day, the policies at the end of the day are gonna have like some funny things in there.
Yeah. Too much. We could do it a little time.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would think,
Sure.
that would be,
Okay, we have to plan this though. 52 policies. Yeah, we can do that.
We have 13 meetings
There's-
this year.
There's 2 this evening, and there are 50 in the box. You have the easy job.
Divided by 12.
Private session, and if you need, prep help,
Yeah.
we can take turns helping you.
He's all done.
I'm ready. I've done it.
Oh,
It's just ready for us to review.
Oh, I think you just got them together.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
We got some ready to review.
So in each file, these are organized by the
Oh, wow.
by your policy manual. In every folder is the current policy and the recommended new one.
Yeah.
For your review. And there's enough copies that you could do, and what I did is I made all the copies, so if you wanted to do it at school committee meetings, I could actually give you these in advance,
Yes.
so
Yes.
you could study them.
Yes, we should review them before,
Yeah,
so we're not taking up valuable. school
that's right,
time.
because if you do 5 policies and you start here from
Right,
scratch.
Right, we'll be here for.
So we
hours.
each get one this week. No, I think we're all gonna get.
No,
a
we're all gonna
copy
get
of these.
So revised.
Okay.
Well, that's that's actually up to you.
I think we should, if we're all
We should all
planning on
review
it, I think that it would be.
I was thinking more like I took one, I read
Divvy.
it, I explain it to you, and then.
Dividing
No,
up.
I don't read that.
Okay, alright.
So we all for a point of order, I see that in the agenda it says first reading.
Yes,
Does it need to be read multiple times to vote on?
yes,
How many?
twice,
Okay.
and you can vote the second time.
Okay, so like when we're done reading, going through all of the policies, we can take a final vote for.
The ones that
The
you've
ones that
reviewed for a
were-
second time.
No, Madam Chair, if I may, my recommended procedure would be this. The chair tells me, put X number of policies on the agenda. I send them to you. I can do that electronically.
Yeah,
Can't do it today because
right,
the machine is
okay.
broken. But then I put them on the agenda, first reading.
Yes.
That's the work.
And then the following.
And
section.
then the following meeting, we have second reading for those 5. I'm picking 5
Yes.
off the top of my head.
yeah,
Those 5,
First reading for another.
another
Yeah.
5.
okay,
But typically, the hard work is done
The
in
first
preparation
reading,
for first reading.
which if we're reading at home, it'll take away some, but okay.
So.
Okay, 10 policies. That's a lot.
It's a lot. And it'll take us the whole school year.
Yeah.
So my question is, are there any other policies other than plus the 2 that we're reviewing today that have to be amended or? reviewed?
Absolutely, there will be, but I don't know what they are yet because I haven't got the annual communication from the MASC attorney yet. Typically on an annual basis, I get, and actually you all get a newsletter, and the front page of the newsletter says policy revisions. That's actually how I did most of these, by going back to those documents. My guess is that there have been laws passed in the last few months by the legislature that may require policy. It takes time for the attorneys to review the laws and to change that into policy. And so there may be, but a lot of these, the entire finance package of your policy, which that's J, I believe. No, D. The entire section of D, yeah, has been rewritten. And most of those will go quickly.
So in D, are there multiple policies?
Yeah, there's dozens of them.
Yes, okay, so maybe we can categorize them versus just five at a time. Would that be easier? I'm just thinking like, review all finance related policies.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's the way your policy manual is organized, so that, so for example, in my hand, I'm holding 4 A section policies. We could do those next. Then the D's, we may be able to bite off more because a lot of those are minimal change, small changes that when you read them, you'll go, oh yeah, that's, yeah, that, you know, yeah, a law was passed, so the reference at the bottom of this is different and the language was a little different. Most of these policies will not take a long debate. Some will, but most won't. After you review them.
So you're gonna send them to us before the meeting, we're gonna have the first review at the meeting, and then we're gonna have the second review at the next meeting and vote on it.
Yes. And at that meeting, you'll have another set of policies for first reading.
So is everyone okay with like group versus five?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever makes sense for her.
Yeah. The chair and I will, like, I'll preview them and I'll say, yeah, we can do 8 tonight because 5 of them are nothing.
That makes sense.
Okay?
Yeah,
Thanks.
that sounds good.
We'll go as fast as we can.
Yeah, okay, that sounds great. So
And
let's
I'll
look
try
at-
to give you a week to read.
Yeah,
Look at them.
Please, yes, we could.
Is there a way, if we do have comment, to use something like, you know,
Track changes.
well, track changes, but like that we're collaborating on the document, like Google Files or something like that, so that we're not like repeating each other's work if somebody has the same question.
That's a good point. Can you make it a
Could you
Google
make
Word
it a Google Doc?
And that way
They're all PDFs. They're all PDFs.
Okay.
Because of because of the same reason we can all. Yeah.
And have a
Communication.
and have serial deliberations. You're going to vote on your policy. So I can send them to you. You can read them,
I mean.
but you can't communicate with one another.
They don't.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
British
yeah,
would be
yeah.
considered.
Yeah.
No efficiency and open meeting.
However, I do want to be candid about it. And it will be relieving to you when I make the next statement. Most of these are written by very expert attorneys, and there's very little you need to do on most of these policies. It's not like a discipline policy where you're going to think about, well, is that too strong or too? It's a policy about, you know, like what a threshold for money is or stuff like that. Most of these, you don't want to change the language because you may change the meaning of it. And it's going to be quick.
Okay,
Great.
all right.
Okay, well, we have a plan.
We have a plan. Wonderful.
But like the policy for accepting an outside student is one of the policies.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I changed the language from school district employee to town employee at your suggestion. That's one you may want to debate.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. Okay, so
We have two
the
policies.
first policy that I have for your consideration is a little deceptive because the first document in your packet is not the policy I want you to change. It's just the framework. It's about substitute teachers. So GCG, I'm not asking you to change.
Yeah.
The next document in your packet is GCG-R substitute pay. This is an antique. The chair and I were talking about this prior to the meeting. Some time ago, you authorized me to pay substitutes $90 a day. And you authorized me to change that if I had to get competent substitutes. However, we never got around to changing the policy. So what I'm asking you to do, if you go to the fourth document in that packet, is and I labeled it new.
Yeah.
Okay. This is my idea for a new GCG-R substitute pay. The daily rate for a substitute is a minimum of $100 a day. Notice I don't establish the level, I establish a minimum. As compared to the existing policy, which says $65 a day.
Right.
Which is crazy. We haven't paid 60. As a matter of fact, that was before I even came. The superintendent is authorized to increase the daily substitute rate to meet the requirements of state and federal minimum wage laws. That's why we increased it to 90. If you remember, we have to pay $15.75 an hour. And to be competitive with neighboring districts. The superintendent will inform the school committee at a school committee meeting of any changes in the daily rate for substitute. In other words, I'm not going to do it in secret. Okay. Then the second part of this makes no sense at all. It says the extended term substitute rate is $75 per day, retroactive. That's not even consistent with the contract. So then I wrote the next sentence, the extended term substitute rate of pay may be established by the superintendent, but is limited to the daily rate of the B1 level on the Unit A contract. In other words, if I'm going to make up numbers, if we're paying somebody $100 a year and they work 10 days, that would be $10 a day, and I can't pay a sub more than $10 a day. That's what that means, which I think is reasonable.
No issue.
Okay.
So from 90 to 100,
From 65.
From-
actually.
because we never technically changed. the
That's
age.
right.
Okay,
And to a minimum
minimum of
of
100.
100,
Yeah,
Good.
because you don't want to be dealing with this every year
right.
or twice a year.
Yeah.
I mean, if the legislature changes the minimum wage to some of the numbers they're talking about, $100 a day won't meet the minimum wage, and I'm going to be establishing that to meet the law, and then bringing it to you and saying, you know, they changed the minimum wage to 20. I'm going to make this up again. $20 an hour. It's a 6.5 hour day. Therefore, we have to pay $135 an hour. I mean, a day.
So Tony, how do we, because we don't need to deliberate on this for another week or two. How do we, can we just vote tonight?
We
have to
no,
go next, so we have to read it.
We have to deliberate.
The only thing I would suggest is that the recording secretary
Oh, this is
note
the second reading.
that the policy GCG-R substitute pay was read at the meeting for the first reading.
And we can't, there needs to be a time delay between first and second
No.
reading. Why can't we just read it again
You
right
can't
now?
do it at the same meeting.
Nice try.
You can do it at your next meeting.
It's painful.
It is painful.
Well, the purpose of the state law is so that people don't make policies and then the community is surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I, but this is such a tiny
Yeah.
change. Moving on to bullying, which
Alright.
is.
Okay, so this is an interesting one. I got an email about 3 weeks ago from a member of the DESE staff, and I was told that our bullying policy was out of date. But then I said, geez, I know we did this. Once again, we did it in the handbook that parents get, but we didn't do it. So the student handbook that Mr. Andrews creates is up to date. I wanted you to know that. It's not that the parents are dealing with a policy that's outdated. It's just that our policy manual is dealing with a policy and that's outdated. And Madam Chair, I respectfully suggest that this policy not be changed. Because what I did is I went to the DESE recommended policy that's currently on their website, communicated with the DESE staff member, and this is the policy that we really need to have. So the big change is in the paragraph 2.
Yeah, the law.
You see it? It's just totally different.
So you're recommending that we don't edit this?
That's correct.
Not that we don't change it to reflect the new document, that we don't edit this.
That's correct. I am recommending that you accept the version that says new without edits because it's consistent with the requirements of DESE. Now, if you found a grammatical error, that's one thing. But in terms of changing the nature of the language, I recommend that you not. And frankly, that's going to be my recommendation on almost everything.
So just so I know, this is what's in the handbook.
Yes, and I brought the handbook so you could see it.
And in terms of the policy that we're enforcing, are we enforcing the policy that's in the handbook?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Here's the language directly from the handbook.
You guys want to see?
That's why I brought it.
And Madam Chair, if I may, we were also training on that policy. So we're training staff on that policy.
Right. And this is the functioning policy. This is the technical one, which this is the first reading, and just so you know, after your second reading and approval, I have to send a copy to the state. Just to show that we're working.
So we can move on to the school committee project.
So that was my like guide, because we were talking about how we have so many projects that we need to work on this year and kind of breaking it down. So I had sent this to Tony, but I don't think he sent it out in the packet.
I have it here though.
Oh, okay, yeah, we can pass it on to everybody. Great. It's color coded in the copy that I have. But just for better visibility, and so I'll share that with Tony and that I don't think that we need to vote on it, but I felt like this was a good way that we could keep ourselves on task for each of with the goal of January, December, or by the latest at our January 9th meeting, the decision on the rising 6th grade class. But then also, it made sense to me that it could be likely done in tandem with long-term planning, because a lot of the conversations about long-term planning are going to weigh in on our decision for the current 6th grade class. recognizing that the decisions might be different for the current fifth grade class for next year versus what's going to be done ultimately in the future, but the conversations are going to be pretty much open. So this is just like a framework to sort of keep us on task. And I had asked Tony if we could continue to, have it on the agenda, if Connie is okay with that, to just keep us, so we're not, in October, November without making any further headway on the projects, but also not having to talk about every single thing at every single meeting because we have a lot on agendas.
And I think it's good too, because, it's a continued conversation of what we're planning to do. And then this way, if parents have questions or want to bring forward their thoughts and concerns about, the model and how it's working in school, that they have this opportunity, because they'll know be, an agenda item.
Right.
And yeah, I had looked at it. I think it looks great. Thank you for doing that.
No, thanks, Jean. I like how you include, update from the teachers and administration on the blended learning model, the feedback. So I think one of the things we need to try to do is get that feedback. There are additional external resources, and I have somebody in mind to tell me.
Great.
Yeah, they're willing to do.
Yeah, we did pursue a recommendation that we got from someone here, and there were several conversations, some lengthy,
and
then that individual decided not to participate. And that happens,
right?
And so we will continue to pursue.
So can I just get a sense of I appreciate Gina you mapping this out. I just wanted to bucket out like what the projects are. So we have to make a determination with a lot of input from key stakeholders on what's going to happen in our sixth grade 2025. Which right now is 7 students. That right now is I'm meaning they're in fifth grade now. We have to decide on whether this is going to be a long-term for sixth grade or not, and so that we can answer to, because we have a lot of people to answer to about that. So that's anxiety. We have a blended learning experience and development plan, so that we have that expertise in house, and a plan if we choose to exercise that option. And we have a superintendent search. Is there anything else? This policy thing started to scare the crap out of me.
Yeah.
So quiet, but now it feels manageable the way that we ended up. Okay. So this is it, 4 big projects.
Yeah, and the blended learning, it's really not under
right.
I don't know if that's ultimately going to be something that we're going to vote upon,
no.
but more so just getting feedback from the administration on how that model is going, because
it's an option that we would love to see the school have in its basket of expertise. Should we choose to use it, whether it's summer academy, like you did, Acceleration Academy, or something broader, so that there's more options, because we didn't really have that choice this year.
And it doesn't need to be as finite as like combining 2 classes. It's more of that. Differentiation.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, if a student in one class is really excelling and it makes sense for them to join the other class for math, this being less structured and how that's going. So I think our feedback is more in the long-term planning, or
so I mean, especially for this group of children who are currently in 5th grade, and is this model successful, that they can be successful and socialize in their 6th grade year.
And also how it's going for 6th graders going to sports cup.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Yes,
might be able to get some input on that.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
How could we not try?
Well, we had talked about surveying students at a couple points this year to
Yeah.
kind of see how they were. That came up in one of our meetings. No formal recommendation, but
Right.
that came up.
Yeah.
I think in their parents.
Yeah.
Separately. Seems like that would be a great thing. I want to respond a little bit to what you were saying about differentiation. Phoenix has no grades. Big believer in differentiation. And I think I do think that this learning about how to blend and looking at differentiation and what different individuals need in the small school environment, always a good thing. Doesn't really matter to it. I don't care if you have 106 years, right? But I do, in my thinking, we are interested in having the expertise in-house. Should we ever have a lower a dip in class size, we want to have some expertise built in so that if we did ever want to fully combine with 2 grade levels, that we would be ready for it, right? We know that we could build out, we still have planning to do it, all of that conversation with parents and whatnot. But one thing that caught us, I think, a little off guard was that we were trying to deal with too many things at once and then didn't have we never had to have a fully drawn out plan about blended learning. So, or combining 2 grade levels. So when parents said, what's the plan? It was, we couldn't, you don't come up with educational plans on the spot like that, right? We must be good. And so I think though, it was smart. And I think, Gina, you actually started this conversation to think like, let's have this in our repertoire in case we ever have to go that route, right? And that is related, but different than just whole scale, being able to serve individual kids better, right? Or combining, enrichment courses, or something like that. So
yeah, to sustain, like to always have this in place, so to speak, so that we have this model to sustain the population, right, or no matter what's that.
Yeah. Because my gut is if we had that expertise and had been like with staffing and PD and just administrative desire to do it, and parent understanding and whatnot, I don't know that we would have, I don't know if we'd be in the same place as we are now. We may be, we might not be, right? And so we just want to always have all options available to us, even if we never use them.
I think if I can say one, I think one challenge would be so much in education you learn by doing. You learn the theory and then you try to implement it and then you travel.
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
we have to figure out how we would be able to get teachers to apply that new knowledge.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Having experience with multi-grades.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that we need to, first of all, we need to have significant conversations with our teaching faculty.
Yeah.
Significant.
Yeah.
And offer the possibility of looping. Looping is a first grade teacher moving to second grade with the second at the end of the year and going back to first grade. And that begins a process of multi-grade thinking. Because when you loop, when I looped, what I learned was grouping students by age and grade is oftentimes not consistent with their ability to learn and produce academic success. But I learned that by doing it.
Yeah.
Not from a book. Because, old school. So think about when, I was teaching 25 years ago. I stopped teaching and became a superintendent. So, and if nobody's interested, then that's a different issue. But looping may be the gateway.
Yeah.
It may.
It also,
I want to emphasize may.
Right. It also gives a taste of like something different than the, one teacher per grade kind of status quo. And you did that this summer, right? So between the summer work and maybe formally in some way saying, hey, what we're doing with blending ages and grade levels in our specials, right, or Richmond, is part of a body of work that we're interested in, of not necessarily being like grade level bound all the time, right? And you know, it's kind of, and I like Tony when you're bringing up with socialize, so that it's kind of in the ethos of the school, right? That this is something that the school is interested in as a thing. Like, you know, my family wants a dog. We only talk about a dog. If I came home with a tarantula, there would be problems because we've all talked about a dog and I'd be divorced, right? But if we said we'd like a pet, there's lots of different pets. You can have reptile pets and you can have dog pets and you can have some other pet. I'd still be divorced. But it wouldn't be it wouldn't be as weird as if I just came home tonight with a tarantula. And I think it's a bad analogy. It's not like we're comparing a tarantula. But I do think we're onto something here.
Yeah.
That's going to be good and protect us all collectively in the future.
Madam Chair, and the second thing we have investigated is project-based learning. We've already contacted a professional company that does project-based learning training. The concept of, again, having experience with project-based learning, is that project-based learning, when students are focused on producing a product, is, first of all, it's real world. That's what we all do in our jobs. Secondly, it is mimicking the ability of producing a product using teamwork, collaborative learning, collaborative activities. So it really does blend well with multi-grade concept. Unfortunately, the research we've done so far, the companies that we've found want a lot of money. We're talking $25,000, and they want to take 3 days of our faculty for training, and we're not interested. We're interested in a more of a metamorphosis rather than on October 1st when we start this. Yeah. So we continue to look. So they are two things that are in my mind conceptually to assist in the preparation for and the developing the expertise for the possibility of changing the way we do things. You know, the third thing I want to mention is that even though the school committee's goal is to develop expertise in case they need it in the future, I'm thinking of how do we do things to make learning accelerated, better, kids having more fun, teachers being excited about what they do. So have, a lot of things going on that are very positive.
Yeah.
That's where my head is.
And as I said some time ago, we had talked about how do we make Johnson Elementary School just stand out.
Yeah.
Many parents have choices today with some schools. So how do we make the Johnson Elementary School one where parents are like, yes, I like that. I want this is where I want my kid to go. We have an opportunity being so small to really dive into this. So my question is, has this been communicated with staff? And what's their initial reaction?
We have not had meetings about it yet. We only had the one PD day, and frankly, we had things we had to do, and we did them, and then we turned the rest of the time into students, student preparation, making sure the staff was ready for the students today. But I know Mr. Andrews has thought about the next steps and had preliminary dialogue.
We were able to speak to them about your collective and our collective interest in preparing for a future that might look different. And I spoke about thinking about how differentiation might be something that we often think about for PD and might help us in the future if we have multi-grade classes. So it wasn't that we wasn't addressed.
Yeah.
It was that we didn't dive into it and we didn't have a discussion about it.
So before our next school committee meeting, which is September 12th, there's a early dismissal on September 11th.
Yep.
And I know, at least, I mean, in the sort of my thoughts on, it'll be early in the school year, but to get some early feedback for the next meeting on how, I mean, I know you said day one of the combined extracurricular went really well, but like, you know, then we'll have a couple weeks under our belt, what's working, what, you know, just feedback on how that process is going so far.
And I will also, I failed to mention earlier, Conrad and Ms. Kobus and Mr. LaRue spent probably an hour on their reading groups because they're going to do, and they rework their schedule so that they have subjects at the same time. And so they're already thinking how they can do it and how they can. And so I know that reading groups are going to be combined. So that's 30 minutes of academic instruction that'll be multi-grade. And that's this year.
Okay.
So to give the school committee a time frame, September 12th is early.
Right.
Yeah.
For us, because we're trying to be collaborative, and you know, as you all know from your own work, the more you collaborate, the more time it takes. But what I promised, I don't want to share the responsibility and the problems with anyone other than me. I told the staff that based on the survey results that I read, we were going to do our activities with our faculty and our staff differently. So if you remember the last contract we had, we solidified the 10 additional hours of work that was in the contract, but basically had never been used. In addition, we have one generally 1 hour faculty meeting a month. I told the staff that we would be combining those and utilizing them for the decision-making, for the planning, for the development, and that we would take the faculty meeting, which oftentimes was utilized for information sharing, and we would do that electronically. So we really have, in addition to our professional development days this year, and our half days, we have 20 hours. So now, obviously, something's going to come up that we have to work with the staff. So it's probably not going to end up all 20. But it was a commitment by us, by me, that we would be using that time more effectively and more collaboratively, as the survey stated was very important to the faculty, particularly.
So I had monthly feedback from the staff and administration built into this calendar. So like September, you know, our September 12th meeting is just the first, and then it's actually just like every month. But so I know that like in 2 weeks it's going to be super early to get feedback. I guess the other thing in planning ahead, we've talked a lot about looking for external resources to help us to make this decision for long-term planning. And I understand that we're coming up empty-handed in terms of like consultants. I guess as a group, you know, what then do we see as the needed information? Obviously, we need information and feedback on how the blended model is working for making a decision about this current class, but for long-term planning, what information do we need to make that decision? Because I know that we've talked a lot about that those decisions on how many grades are in your school is predominantly based upon space. I built into the calendar budgetary review, like how would it affect our budget? Theoretically, we won't know exact numbers unless we were to talk to Swampscott, but how would it impact our budget? If we did send them, how would it impact our budget? What money would we spend to send them? What money would we save by not having those students in the school? But I think in looking ahead, what other information do we need? And I don't even really know. Like, as a person, I'm not an educator, and I
thought that we were looking for external resources for the models that would be available for integrating multiple grades for learning. That's what my understanding of it was. And, you know, one of the people I spoke with is from a small town who had like a similar thing. You know, so I was thinking, got me along the line thinking of looking at other small towns, and I know the state standards are different, but it's really not what we're looking like. We're looking for a model, and then we can incorporate our own standards, right?
Yeah.
You know, so I was kind of thinking along that end, if there are other small town community schools that, you know,
Yep.
you could reach out to. Yeah.
So I thought we also, yes, and we also talked about having a consultant to kind of guide us on how to think about sixth grade in particular, right? Where in a small town where there's some volatility around numbers, and develop, like, throw it all against the wall. Developmentally, what's right, small town, what's right, the particular, you know, up and down of Swampscott and Nahant, and try to make a good long-term decision about, you know, where sixth grade should be, and then allow for an open community for life to be able to live with it. We talked about that. We did not press go or anything, but that was one part of the conversation that I just want to be with, because I think that having somebody external give some information and input on this, and then allowing people in the home to react feels at least transparent, right? It also can potentially, like, there's like opinion, and then there's some guidance, and then there's telling people what to do, right? And I think like guidance helps inform opinion for, you know, a lot of folks, and so that they can, because there were a lot of, without that, even in our smaller discussion, which only concerned the here and now of our current sixth graders that are, you know, in Swampscott. I know, yeah. And as an educator, there were things that were said, you know, out of worry, right, for individual children, which I understand, that as an educator did not ring true. And then there were other things that did, right? And we're not going to have, everybody's not going to fall in. I know that, but I do think having some guidance around, and not even saying it kind of would be better to do X. I mean, here is the up and the downside of this and this, and have somebody who deeply understands like what it means to be a sixth grader.
Well, what kind of role is that? I don't even know. I don't know if there is such a.
And the only type of thing I could think of, like when talking about that, would be similarly for those external resources, reaching out to small towns who had these experiences, is, you know, maybe talking to their guidance counselors, you know,
like education psychologists.
Yeah, somebody in that realm who could speak to those things, because it's more, you know, you try to you relate emotion and social blending to learning, and it's all intertwined. So, you know, I don't know that there's such expertise to like contract out. It's more.
It's not one person. I mean, we know how to run numbers. Like, we've looked at the numbers in that slant chart, you know, the diagonal chart, and we know how to look at budget. We know how to look at our own education offerings. We know how to look at Swampscott's, right? what's missing is sort of like a developmental psychologist approach, right?
Yeah.
And who, the only thing that I would want that person, I think, to have in addition to the natural expertise that I think they would have is also understanding, like, there are pluses, there's up and down sides of small towns.
Right.
And smaller systems and bigger systems. And I think that it would help for the person to be able to sort of like guide folks through that a little bit.
Yeah, because although I welcome when the time comes when we're really hammering down to making a decision, I welcome community input. That's one person's experience. And so if there is anybody that can talk to the bigger experience and that's the other thing. And you made me think of something also is that when it comes, we've reviewed the data for academic success in our own town and in Swampscott, but I think that piece of information really needs to be shared at a bigger meeting when we're ready to make this decision. That we really need to keep that, because there was a big concern about academic performance of our Nahant students in the long run, and how that played into when we went to the Swampscott. So there's a social piece, there's the budgetary piece that's a big part of our job as a school committee, but also the academic performance. So we need to make sure that that's included.
And I think at the end of the day, people are still gonna like weigh in how they weigh in. But I know I hear you. And so imagine like a collection of information, a body of work that we, instead of us just like sitting here in this venue, we also allowed for some dialogue and discussion, right? And I guess like, I'm trying to like, how can we limit some of the swings? You know, like we heard move, and we still probably hear out in the street, like the move of this or the potential permanent move is the worst thing that could ever happen to kids in Nahant.
Right.
They will never do as well, right? And then I hear other people that are like, it is the best, most forward-moving thing you could do right now is to allow the students have another year in Swampscott or additional year in Swampscott. And it's a little dizzying to figure out how to like, because it's actually probably not either.
No, right.
Right.
It could be different.
Right. And I think the dialogue also could be different. And I think the people weighing in could be potentially a little bit more forward moving for all of us if we invest in some carefully laid out sessions with some information, and we invite people's input, and we think, and we might have an open forum where there is a back and forth, because people definitely crave that. But that's not this forum. And then we gather that info and then try to make a decision.
I think I liked what you said earlier, Gina, about, making sure that we hit these pieces. And I think, similar to what you were saying is whenever like we're looking at people or, to give information about this long-term plan is to provide like buckets of information, like here's the developmental aspect, here's the academic aspect, and based on the data that we've seen, and this is the financial aspect, because those are all like components that are important, I think, to everybody in the community. And if there's another thing here that we could figure out, but I mean, at the end of the day, your opinion about your own specific child and their success or lack of success is solely your independent opinion and experience. So it's,
and honor that.
So if we could find somebody, an external resource for the developmental, social emotional, and I think that we have access to the data for the academics, and then access to the data for the finance. So I think we're just missing that one. Yeah. Does that feel good to everybody?
Yeah.
I have so much to say, and it's all getting muddled. So let me try to speak logically. I hear the school committee members speaking about process expertise, not result expertise.
Yes, yep.
Am I right?
I don't know, because I feel like results is like the academic. Results.
If I may be so bold as to suggest, when you're in the 79th percentile of all elementary and middle schools in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, it's difficult to change an academic program.
Oh, no.
It's real, no, let me finish. It's really hard because it's what you're doing is working. If you were in a school that was low performing, there would be much less pushback. And so what we need to do is figure out, if we're going forward with some change of model, how to process it in a way where people have more confidence that the academic excellence is going to be further enhanced,
yes,
not lost.
right.
What happened to us this past year is the social element got confused with academia,
right,
and it got blended. And people were talking about, I don't want my 5th grader to go to school, and I'm going to be blunt, with this particular group of children, for whatever reason. And it didn't have a lot to do.
Are you talking about the blended, the idea of 5th, 6th together?
5th and 6th grade,
yeah, that definitely.
It was the unique to that number of students, whatever it was, 14. And every time we did it, every time we would do it in the future, it would be unique again. And we have to figure out how to process it. Because that's a different process than we can guarantee academic success because we're going to get an expert in here that's going to help us put together curriculum and methodology and how you move forward in blended grade levels. Because they're two very different issues. And it's a real, in my head, it sounds long-term. It sounds like you talk about it, you develop it, 1 or 2 teachers try it for a year or 2. It's either that, or it's a leap of faith. And I think we learned that there wasn't a lot of affirmative feeling about a leap of faith.
Yeah, but I think, you know, when we were discussing this, it was because we wanted to have an academic program, like you said, to enhance the academics, but also enhance the social part of it. And so, like you said, you know, we were really focused on the social part because I think the academic part is working.
Right.
But we needed a piece to make the social part work that would be yeah.
The other thing that kind of like holds me back a little bit in this conversation about long term is that there's 2 groups that are going to have some serious expertise that don't have it right now, and that is the kids that are currently in 6th grade in Swampscott and their parents, right? And those 5 kids are going to be, they can't be the only determiner. But
right.
I agree. Personally,
it's way too small of
yes, it's too small. But personally, I think if there's a way that we can either focus group them or survey them and get some real authentic data from them, I do think it is going to be a helpful guide and a helpful piece of this conversation. The problem is they're not going to be able to give accurate data until at least halfway through the year. And I would say just seeing how kids, just like the rest of us, walk down their year, like probably shouldn't even talk to them until spring, you know, and that would mean that we couldn't make a long-term decision, which leads to the other piece I was thinking about, which is why, and let me just ask this for the sake of asking, like, given the fact that our current 5th grade, the 4th grade did not fluctuate that much in size, right? Correct. And the 5th grade is 7 kids, right? That's probably not going to get that much bigger this year. Could get small, I mean, by between this year and next year. So, like, is there something that precludes us from making another short-term decision?
Yeah, I was just gonna
see that, so
And
as everybody
push the
saying
long
this,
term back.
like I saw the two being decided in tandem, and maybe they would be different decisions. I'm not saying
Yep.
that one needs to be the other, but that we could gather information about both at the same time. But
For a
as we're
year.
having this discussion, like if we as a group don't think that it'd be feasible to come to a decision about long-term planning by the end of the year, we don't have to.
Yeah.
Maybe we just focus
Interested in that.
on, you know,
Well,
it's not
the
giving
superintendent.
information, but allowing ourselves to know that
What's in front of our face.
Yes,
Right,
Needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
realistically speaking, I don't think it's feasible to have a decision
Right.
in regards to.
That's why I was
long-term
feeling
planning.
Yeah.
I don't think we put together the information,
Okay.
get
Great.
the expertise that we need, find a superintendent.
No.
There's just no way.
Yeah.
But recognizing that we're going to be collecting really useful information as we go, that could help in the future with that decision.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think too, you know, for the short term plan, like where we're looking at this from a long-term perspective to see what to do with this class.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Right, like,
Yeah.
so it's not that long-term planning has to be complete, it's, we're looking at this holistically and thinking about the future plans as well as the short term. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, I was not, you know, this was not, long-term is an agenda item that we want to discuss.
Okay,
It's
that makes
not-
me feel better, because I definitely.
Well, long-term
was
can be
feeling
2
kind of
years,
excited.
3
Yeah.
years, not.
Yeah, I think,
Right.
I think
Yeah.
it's sort of a two-part,
Yeah.
Yeah.
our decisions for both the next year and future.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna do the best we can with trying to find the people that we think we need to help guide us.
Yeah.
But it might be a unicorn, right, to try to find this developmental person
Yeah.
who is potentially at other schools that are small, like that, those people may not want to, it can be tricky. I think we're gonna try, and I think we need to do the best that we can do is put together a team to help guide us.
Right.
Because I think we're feeling like all these decisions are heavy. But I do think that we can do it. I just think that we know now, like, yes, by December, we wanna be able to guide everybody as to what's best for this class. Is it gonna be their last year? But and that doesn't mean we have to decide by December for the next several years, right? I mean,
Right, no,
so,
and also to collect like the pieces that we actually need to present. To
Right.
say this is a good idea,
yeah.
or this is,
Yeah.
you know, what we're looking at and basing our decisions, our own individual.
Right.
We need, I would think that we need to start discussing the decision for the current 5th grade soon
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
with,
Agreed.
with parents.
Yes.
Sure,
Agreed.
I think that's ideal.
Well, that's why it should continue to be an
Right.
agenda item. at
Until-
least.
I
Yeah.
agree, every
I
month.
think, yeah,
Yeah, I agree, and then,
that's, January 9th.
and a
is actually-
stated agenda item, so that people know it's
Yes,
on there,
yes,
and
yes,
they can show up, they can get input as they.
And actually actively engage them with a request for attendance, input,
Yes.
thought process. Whatever they
Right,
want.
because their input is also gonna guide our thinking,
Right.
yeah, and what we need to do.
I know you can't see it in color, but all the things in red, and it's at least once a month that we're getting feedback from the one for learning model.
That's great.
Let's not forget the teacher.
That's
Well,
nice.
yeah, in general.
I just, I
Yeah.
wonder, you know, if we're kind of going by this as a guide, it's wondering to put the September 12th, like just push everything up to September
Yeah,
26th, only because there's not a lot of time for September.
And September 26th, the information was more long-term planning, which we're not.
Right, right.
Focused on as a goal. for this.
Right, yeah.
Also different.
Okay, and there's some articles that I found, they're old, there's nothing current, that I'll pass around in
Yeah.
regards to. Should the 6th grade be in elementary or middle school? An analysis done by Duke, this goes back to July of 2006. It's interesting that there's really nothing remotely current. on
There
this
is,
subject.
and I've spent a considerable amount of time looking. The standards-based movement and the testing mentality in education has done away with a lot of flexibility in groupings and learning. The heyday was really the 70s and 80s, beginning of the 90s, and then our business relatively quickly changed into teach, test, evaluate. Teach, test, evaluate. I mean, right now in Boston, the huge debate is going on whether to continue to have MCAS as a graduation requirement. The hard thing is what I spoke about before. It's worked.
Yeah.
So how do you change something that has resulted in Massachusetts 5 years in a row being evaluated as the #1 state in public education? That's hard. Now, there are probably the social psychologists would probably say, well, you're giving up some things. You know, the other debate that we're not having in education right now is long-term versus short-term. I can pass a test, but what does that mean when I'm 35 years old?
Right. Exactly, we're teaching our kids how to take tests.
And then, you know, the test people come back with, what, do you want an attorney to pass the bar?
Right, well, they have to know the law, it's their job.
You know, it's, but do you know, I mean, likewise, do you want a student who can't do high school work going to, going forward to higher education? At the same time, the huge debate in this country now is how do we replace our technical retirees? There's probably nobody in this room who hasn't had trouble getting a carpenter, a plumber, an HVAC person, and huge shortage. And the balance is the technical. You know, and Massachusetts is actually in really good shape when it comes to vocational education compared to some states. Connecticut, for one. So there's a lot of stuff here. You know, one of the things Kevin and I are talked about, and we haven't acted on it yet, is we want to get Northeastern more involved in the uniqueness of our education.
Yes.
Because you know the Marine Center, and I know it's early, but we want to not have a lot of time go by before we have that debate. How can we? Because prior to COVID, we were on the cusp of becoming a Marine-centered school.
Exactly, I know.
And then, you know,
I heard.
Yeah.
Will we have any data to look at for academics for these children? Throughout this evaluation here?
Oh, certainly, yeah. We have a lot more than we would have had even 3 years ago.
Okay.
The iReady and IXL, now we're using benchmarks and MCAS.
Well, we are talking about the students that are going to sponsor that.
No. Oh, no, we're talking about
Current fifth graders. Yeah.
You know, would we be able to have any data on?
I'm not sure. I mean, the size is so small. I'm not sure how much I can share with the school committee. I mean, 6, 7 students, you're gonna know who.
We can give comparisons without numbers. We can say better than, lower than, higher than.
As a class.
Something, you know.
Yeah, we can certainly do it as a class.
We can figure it out.
Yeah.
You know.
Have that piece of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I just want to be careful about that piece.
Oh, I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah. It's when you have this small number, it's just so easy to identify.
That's the smartest kid.
But we can certainly give a if blank then blank kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just to help us.
Sure.
Sure. I'll put that together for the 26th.
Team, just it's just after 9:30.
Okay.
And that's great. But I'm wondering like how long-ish do you think our executive committee is going to be? I'm just trying to get things gauge.
Yeah, we can expedite it or can't. I mean, I don't know that no, okay. So then we can certainly.
I mean, I'm sure I don't want to push us doing anything that's not
No,
first.
I mean, I
just-
think we.
It's.
Yeah,
So
Madam-
I'm gonna look forward on 9:34.
Madam Chair, what I suggest, because it is on the agenda, that the school committee take a vote not to hold their executive session this evening. And we'll get it.
Are there any?
Well, the yes, in an open forum and for the notes and for the minutes. Short story, I came to school early yesterday and two staff members asked me if I were going to be retiring soon because they had heard something to that effect of a superintendent search at a school committee meeting. I didn't think much of it. I don't remember that happening, but I made a quick decision that I was going to announce it to the staff yesterday morning at the meeting, and I did. So it is with great reluctance, immense and gracious appreciation that I want the school committee to officially know that I will be retiring as your superintendent effective June 30th, 2024. I will put a much more gracious letter together at some point in the future, but I do want you to know that it is really based on the fact that 5 days after June 30th, 2024, I will be 78 years old. And it's time.
Yeah. We appreciate
We're that, it'll be bittersweet for us too, you know, but.
It's been a great run. You know, you and the previous school committees have been supportive and caring. I said it to the faculty and staff yesterday morning. Seems like a long time ago. Every decision you make is about children and the staff.
Yeah.
Everyone. And you are to be commended for that. But anyway.
Well, we appreciate you.
Yeah.
So,
And
we'll look forward to this next year with you as much as we would be sad to see you go.
One thing I always do when I tell people I'm leaving or resigning, and I know 3 of you heard me say this, but I always tell people, I guarantee you that my last day here, I will work as hard as my first day.
Please, we believe that.
Yeah,
For sure.
we know that.
Yeah.
That's why we're sad.
Look at these policies you worked on this summer. Oh my goodness.
Just dying to put a new roof on the school still.
I know.
Right, literally.
So you will be up there.
We have to vote to table,
Yeah.
Okay.
So can I have a motion to table the executive session meeting we were to have this evening to our next meeting?
Go for it.
You go ahead.
You go for it, Beth.
No, I screwed it up last time. You go
So I'll
first.
make a motion to table our executive session scheduled for tonight to our next meeting, September 12th.
I'll second that one.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn. I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:38.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. That was a big call.
very much.
Yeah.
I was smiling though because Roger really wants to go fishing and he's like, can you be done by 10? And I looked at the clock and I'm like, we thought going executive session. I'm like, he's gonna hug you next time.
Who?
He wants to go fishing tonight, huh?